Dr. Jazz.
I followed you like
Dr.
since
Jazz.
Pekin. I was on Fresh Sound then as well, and then I kind of bought all the records that were around on Fresh Sound. So I love that record, by the way.
Peek in.
Yeah, man, that's a good one,
Wow.
right? That's like 17, 18 years now. But yeah, so
18 years ago. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That was, wow. I did not think anyone had ever heard it, Samo.
Oh, come on.
You
But
were
no,
you were working with Jordy then?
yeah, I did two records with him back then, like 2004 and no, 2005 and six or seven, something like that. And but so then I followed everyone kind of who was there on the label and uh, still have the CD actually, so that's nice, right? Uh, that's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah,
Man, that really means a lot. I'm really happy to hear you say that. That really means a lot to me.
to start this talk, you have a new record coming out, and again, it's the
Uh,
same band. It's actually like a working band, and it's coming out in January. And I wanted to ask you, what's the story behind the new one? And I love your compositions. I want to go into that sector later, but still, if you can.
um, sure. Um, well, it's sort of a long story, and I want to make it listenable for the internet audience. So I don't want to drone on, Samo.
No,
I have
go
a
ahead.
tendency to drone on. But this new album, which is going to be available in January, and it might go, I'm going to be making a splash about it throughout the rest of the year. The new record, the idea of the new record is that it's a day, it's a Sunday, which happens to be the day we're having this conversation.
Exactly.
It's a Sunday in the life of I guess some version of me, although I would like to think that other people can hear themselves in it. There's a part in your life, especially in the life of a musician who moves to New York, but I think a part in everybody's life where they feel very separate from everything. They feel disconnected from their past. They're not sure about the future. Maybe their family ties were never that strong, and this is a point at which they're not that strong. There's a certain kind of very 21st century isolation that can come in. I don't know how far back it goes. I don't know, but I feel like I see it on the faces of a lot of people around Brooklyn in the coffee shops, especially this certain, well, I've left my past, but I haven't quite gotten to the future. So there's this certain isolation that comes in, and so and that's it can be there can be pain in that isolation. You can suffer from that. I think a lot of the problems that are happening in the intellectual and really well, I don't mean to be a pretentious guy, but in the intellectual and I would say spiritual life of certainly a lot of white people, certainly a lot of white men in the United States, I think is related to this sense of isolation and the pain that can come with that. Now, okay. So I explained that. And I've certainly experienced that. I think we all have. And if there is a way out of it, even that, I'm like, well, I don't like exactly that phrasing, but let me try to move forward here. is when you realize that there's just a moment you grow out of it and you realize, it's not really like that. The past is what it is, the present is what it is, the future is going to be what it's going to be. I'm just here now, and I should just do what I can now to make everything as good as I can. And anybody I can think of that I see on a regular basis, that's what they're doing. But I wanted to explore this in this sort of suite. So this record Sunday, it covers all these moods. It covers waking up and feeling the isolation, and then a certain kind of storminess or anxiety kind of entering, and then a sort of false puffery, and you feel all ambitious, and then you kind of are deflated, and you lose the thread, and then you get even more hyped up, and then it's the end of the day, and you're really like, this is not going to work, and it ends with a song about Harvey Pekar, the writer, which actually Ember recorded a version of it, and now there's a version of it with Lauren and Brandon and Ivan, Lauren Stillman, Brandon Seabrook, Ivan Opsvik. And he's very important to me. I haven't read him very widely, but I watched that movie, that American Splendor. It's a very well-known movie. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, sure.
With Paul Giamatti. And yeah, and that's a guy, and there's a lot of older people sort of around the music that had some connection to him. He was known, people knew him. And he was by no means an easygoing guy, but he found meaning, and he found joy, and he found a life worth living. And he was a writer and a jazz fan, and I'm those things too. I mean, I write. I don't want to. I'm not whatever Ted Gioia here, but I'm just saying,
you're
like,
a composer and a musician.
No, and also I write down words and I share them with people, and and I'm a jazz fan. I mean, that's the connection. That's why we got into this, right? Samo's first. This is great. We thought it was so great. We went crazy, and so it has this piece, Harvey Pekar, but then it ends on sort of an not ominous note, but a more unsettled note. And we end with a piece in D minor that ends with the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes of it are the voicing that Bill Evans plays on So What. Oh, wow. When he plays So What. We don't actually do what, we do just so. We do Bill Evans, EAD, what is it? EADGB. Yeah. Those are the last 5 notes on the record. Sort of and there's something about there's some wisdom in Miles Davis, Bill Evans, Jimmy Cobb, Paul Chambers, those guys, good musicians. There's some wisdom in that song and in that in the way they lived. That's a whole other story. So that's what the album is about. So that'll be out. That'll be available widely in a couple weeks, and I'm going to be ringing the bell to try to just get some attention for it. Just try to get people to listen to it for the rest of the year, probably. And I'm immensely proud of it. No overdubs. Fantastic. No edits, no punches. Okay. There is an edit. There's a piece recorded without drums that has like a noisy ending, and then I recorded a drum solo, and that fades out, and the drum solo fades in. Okay, so we did that, but there's no fix. There were no fixes. There was no sweetening. It's exactly there's a so you can find, if you are of a mind to hear it in that way, you can hear, I'm thinking of one fill I played where I was playing with, I was holding the stick this way, and I was like, oh man, I'm not gonna be able to get through the tune with a match grip because I'm not a match grip player. I play this way. And I switch over, and I went really fast switching over, and I'm late coming in on a beat. Oh, well, to me, that's like what the album is when I'm late on one snare drum, but
those are the best moments, always.
Anyway, thanks for asking about it. I'm very proud of it. Say again, Samo?
No, those are the best moments, like when something goes wrong. Like on many Frizzell records, there's always like a moment like that, or Paul Motion or whatever, you hear it's like, okay, and they leave it there. It's the music, and I love that, you know.
Man, the whole week, the last couple of days, I've been interested in the Miles Davis Plug Nickel again, which I haven't heard
Oh shit,
in
yeah.
years. And I mean, that is raw, man. That is like mistakes. I mean, they're like past error, like they're past that. Like those five guys in that audience, they walk right out of that room of mistakes, not mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, just the bravery of those people and the support of that audience to play the way they're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
When you mentioned, you know, it's a suite, and you know, I always loved your compositions, like already from the debut, like of Spalding Gray and that plain chant, which has something Paul Motiony about it. I don't know. And how have you written this tunes?
Thanks, Samo.
How do you compose usually? I mean, what's the story? Did you have also these guys in mind?
I just sit at the piano. You know, I play piano. Say again?
Did you have these guys in mind, like Brandon and Lauren, and that they're gonna play the music, or?
Somewhat. Somewhat. I'm not that kind of, you know, Duke Ellington and those guys, Thad Jones, they could compose with certain people in mind. I don't have enough skill really as a composer. I have to just get this piece done. And if this piece is good enough, like if this is a piece of music, then I'm just going to not beg, but I'm going to just, okay, well, who's going to sound, who might want to play this? But that's after the piece is just composed, because I don't have compositions just falling out of me like Charles Mingus and who, you know, whoever your favorite composer is, Carla Bley. I mean, you know, I'm not that kind of, you know, it's a lot of effort, and, you know, it's every year it gets a little easier, but like Plain Chant, Spalding Gray, I really appreciate you mentioning those. I'm very proud of those, but you know, those were really babies, you know. And Brandon Seabrook was very supportive. Brandon's like, Vin, this is a tune, this is a good tune, we can play this. I would show him early versions of it, and he was very supportive, you know. So was, you know, so was everybody, Jacob Sachs, you know, those kind of guys, very supportive. But I just sit at the piano, and in the old days I would just sort of play. Now it's a little more methodical. Matt Botter, my friend, the great tenor saxophonist and band leader, he writes songs, not all the time, but one of his methods is he just finds a song he likes and writes his version of it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've tried that as well.
He makes no. Yeah, it works. You know, it gets you started, and then the end result never really sounds that much like what you started with.
No.
So I just do that now, because I'm like, well, I don't have time for inspiration to strike. You know,
exactly.
I need to be writing, and I'll think of something. Oh, so recently I've been really into like Burt Bacharach and what's the guy who wrote Donna Summer, MacArthur Park. What's that guy's Jimmy Webb.
Okay, yeah, oh yeah, Jimmy
Webb.
He
wrote Wichita Lineman.
Ben
Monder plays.
Oh man, yeah, sure.
So I'm really into that right now. I love just those pop chords and a truly flowing melody, which all the pop composers do. You know, Brian Wilson and Steely Dan and you know, Frank Zappa was I love those flowing melodies. You know, so I'm in that zone now, but I'm also, well, anyway, these are just the people I think about, you know, just those flowing lines, simple melodies, and then always trying, I'll say this and I'll be done. Just, I'm really, really desperately trying, not desperately, but well, maybe, but really trying to be a complete musician, you know, on the model of Max Roach and Philly Joe, and those great, the real,
Yep.
the cats, and so I'm transcribing solos, Lester Young and Louis
Oh,
Armstrong
really?
and
Oh, wow.
Miles Davis and little fragments of John Coltrane because it's too fast. I can't hear most of the notes. Little fragments of Charlie Parker, a measure here, two measures there, and playing through a lot of jazz compositions just out of the real book, trying to play them in time. Playing Monk tunes and playing Wayne tunes and really trying to just inhabit that world. And yeah. You know what it's about, Samo. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, but I mean, you've been doing that for quite some time. You the trio with Jacob and Massa. You did like what, Harold Arlen, Dad Dameron, and Howard
Yes,
Mandel, and like Lee
yes,
Morgan.
yes.
Who else?
A
Danny
lot
Walton,
of
I think.
that's a collective trio, and then Jacob Sachs is this is one of the strongest personalities in jazz right now.
Oh, sure.
He has a conception of a tune, and all you have to do as a drummer is just start and end with him. That's a lot of those, especially the most recent records. A lot of that, Jacob is I don't want to discount my own contribution or overburden him with the result of the record, but he is a very, very, very he's just so strong that if you're playing with him, it's just the easiest thing in the world because he's doing all the work. You just go with him. And those records are really couched in our friendship and Massa and our connection to Massa, who's a very, very individual.
Yep.
I mean, those guys are going to do what they're going to do, whether I'm playing drums or Paul Motion was playing, and they both, well, Jacob a little more than Massa, but they both played with Paul. If Paul Motion had been playing with them, it would sound, well, then it would be Paul, but
different.
If it was Jeff Williams or whoever it was, or Jim Black or Gerald I don't want to say that, but I'm just saying those guys are so strong. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I love the trio. I mean, I see you equally. Even the trio. Like, I wanted to ask you about this, but since we're there, like, your trio with Ethan and Formanek, Mike, you're like there, even though those guys are like, Mike Formanek is one of my heroes, and
those guys they ran the session. Neither of those guys are natural side people. That was I wrote the script and I raised the money, but that was a collective endeavor, in terms of the music. It was my script, it was my my album, but it was a collective effort. And Ethan, a lot of the stuff I really like on the record is we would rehearse with Mike or we would play with Michael, and then Ethan would be like, man, we really should just do whatever Michael wants. We really, Vin, really, we should just do what Michael wants, right, Vin? Right? That's very Ethan. He really, he's a very generous guy. He's especially musically, he's very generous. He's very like, well, let's just do what Michael is into. Well, let's just set it up so Michael can be cool. That's what Jacob is too. It's just interesting that Ethan, who's so, we're reading his opinions and we all had Bad Plus records, and then getting to work with him, and he's really like, oh, well, whatever Michael wants to do, that's fine. We'll just do this. Michael's the real musician here. Let's just do what Michael wants to do. And then Michael's like, hey guys, whatever, So that was so fun. That was a beautiful thing. I hope we can do some more stuff. I hope.
Yeah, it's a beautiful one. Yeah, it's really beautiful, man. How did you end up with Ethan? I know with Michael you played with Chad, and which is also another beautiful record. But like, how did
Ethan? We have a cute story. We have a cute origin story. I wrote a piece because I love Paul Motion. We all love Paul Motion. And I, when I was in my early 20s, I thought he and I could be friends. Why not? Why wouldn't Paul Motion want to be friends with me? How could this not work out for everyone? And I'm very like that. I'm very, to this, I'm still like that. If I think you're good, I just walk up to you and just,
Well, that's a good philosophy, man. I mean,
I don't mind it. Some people are receptive, some people are not. It's fine. It doesn't bother me. But so I chased Paul around and had these really funny conversations with him. And I wrote this piece while I was working well, it's this whole long story, but I had this period where I was living in Oregon and I really wasn't doing much. You know, I had this job, this theater job, and I had all this time off, and I would bother all the other actors with these impersonations of me talking to Paul, and they were like, my friend Lukman was like, just write that down and stop bothering me. So I wrote it down, and then I just put it on my website, which no one ever went to, and somehow Ethan came across it, and we'd never spoken. I was 34 years old, and I'd been to many of his gigs, and I'd stood next to him a number of times, but we never talked. I never said hi to him. And friends of mine knew him. I didn't know him. And he reached out to me on Twitter. It was Twitter then. He was like, yo, email me right away. Basically like, who the hell are you? And why do we not know each other? And he was like, play a session with me in 2 weeks. Like right now, play a session with me. So I went over and played a session with him. Went okay. Wasn't great. Wasn't terrible. And we, I just stayed in touch with him. We'll go to his gigs, and we were sort of friends. Started entering more the friend zone. And then for whatever reason, he was working with the choreographer Mark Morris, and they were working on this show based on Sgt. Pepper by the Beatles. They were going to go to Liverpool for a week to debut this new dance concert. And they had a budget, and they had a whole thing. And at the last minute, they were like, we need a drummer. The show was premiering in May, and it was like March. And Ethan was like, hey, I have a gig for you, but we need to talk about it. And I was like, oh, I bet a friend of his is getting married, and he's got roped into the cocktail hour or something. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Why wouldn't I? You know what I mean? And then he was like, okay, so it's a dance concert. It's not jazz. I don't mean to call you for a not jazz thing, but it's not jazz. But I think you'd be good at this. Do you want to do it? And I was like, well, I agreed to do it, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and it really didn't. It was fun, but I was like, this is so weird. There's no way I'm ever going to do this again, and there's no way this is like working for anybody. This is so weird. You know what I mean? It was so weird. And apparently everybody was happy, and the show was well received, and they booked a lot of gigs. And they asked me to do the next year of gigs, and I was like, year of gigs? And I fell in love. I fell in love with the dancers. I fell in love with not as people, as artists.
Yeah, sure.
I was in love with Mark. I was like, oh, I get it. And Ethan and I were spending all this time on the road, and we became friends. And we did a lot of those gigs. I've done over 100 concerts with Mark Morris and Ethan Iverson.
Wow. And
that became a huge part of my life, a huge influence on me. And then Ethan and I started playing jazz together, and I'm playing on a couple tunes of his new Blue Note record, a great honor for me. Kush Abadi is playing on the rest of it. It's wonderful.
Oh, wow. Beautiful, man.
Yeah, we'll be on the road in March this year playing Mark Morris. You know what I mean? We're going to be at BAM. Ethan has been like Jacob Sachs, and so many people have been are just wonderful. Jazz is great, man. Great people in jazz. Ethan has been just very helpful, very supportive, very encouraging, and I really love him, and I really love, well, everybody pretty much, and he's a good friend, and I just could never say thank you enough, and Michael Formanek, and yeah.
Beautiful, man. Yeah. How did you meet up Michael, actually, since we're with that record?
Oh, well, that was Jacob. Jacob Sachs. Jacob Sachs
Ah,
had Jacob. This is a long time ago. He used to play once a month at Cornelia Street. Sometimes they would give him 2 nights. They would give him Friday, Saturday. If he was going to play with Motion, they would do that. They would give him
wow.
2 nights. And usually he had Dan, his guys, Dan Weiss, Thomas Morgan,
Yeah.
and and then there was, every once in a while somebody would not be free, and Jacob was like, "Hey man, can you do Cornelia with Formanek and Ellery Eskelin?"
Woo.
Well, yeah, yes, man. And I was like, why didn't you call Tyshawn, man? Why don't you call Gerald Cleaver? Why don't you call? But of course, it's just a night. I mean, what's the difference? It's just a gig. It's 2 sets. No one's even gonna. It's just. So of course I'm very excited, and it was okay. It wasn't great, wasn't awful. You know what I mean? And it was okay. Jacob very supportive. Jacob was very, very supportive of what I was trying to do. And Michael gave me like a look. You know what I mean? He was like, "Okay, who are you?" You know what I mean? And then I just kept tabs on him and would check in, and then we were briefly roommates to an extent. He was, he and his wife were living outside Baltimore, and they were Michael was leaving his job at Peabody, and wanted to transition back into being a full-time musician. And he would come to New York for like 5-6 days, and he was paying rent at my apartment. We were technically roommates, but the man was barely there more than 48 hours at a stretch. And on occasion his wife would come, and it was like, well, this is a temporary scene, but we played a lot of duo, and we did a lot of sessions, and we had a lot of coffees, and we had a lot of drinks, and I really picked his brain. I really was like, "Hey man, what was it like when you were doing Blood Count, and what was it like with Freddie Hubbard, and what was it like with Fred Hirsch, and and Michael's just one of the most generous, serious people in the music. He's so I was just in love, and I just. And then we started, he started getting, a little gig here. Vin, you want to do this little gig with me? Well, fuck yes, man. Michael, I'll go anywhere and play with you, man. I don't care. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I'll figure it out, And one thing led to another, and then suddenly there was this connection, this real sense of. And Michael said to me, "Hey man, if I play with a drummer and I like it, I don't really question it." And I was like, "Yeah, man, that's the way to be." He plays with somebody, he likes it, he goes, "Okay, I like it." And he doesn't wonder why. Smart. So we were doing the drum trio, and then there's plans. There are still plans to continue as a quartet with Angelica Sanchez. It's a little bit unclear how that's going to work, but we're all very hopeful that we'll find a way to make that happen. And then I think Michael and I are going to be playing again in April with Camilla Nebbia. That's the plan right now. You know how things are. Things are in flux. People have a lot going on. I played with Michael in the fall with Bill McHenry. That was a dream.
Oh man, beautiful.
Dream come true. And I mean, like I say, man, jazz we're all married to the same person. We're all in love with the same thing. and we might have our personal ups and downs in our own lives, and we have moments where we're really seeing eye to eye, and moments where we don't, and that's life.
That's good.
But these are great people, and yeah, it's just a love fest for me, man. I don't have. It's kind of all it is.
No, but beautiful to hear you talk with these guys. Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Speaking of musicians, Vinny, I wanted to ask you, already before, like, but how did you hook up with this band, which has been going on for 10 years on Sunday, like, with Brandon, Ivan, and Lauren? I mean, they're all of my, incredible players and band leaders and everything. Like, how did you hook up those guys together for that album?
Well, the initial idea was, I want to mention a great saxophonist who not no one, but not too many people have heard, named Matt Blaustein. He's not in New York. He's in, actually not sure where he lives, somewhere in California, San Diego or something like that. He's teaching, he's great, truly great musician. And he and I did a lot of playing together. And I really learned a lot playing with him, same age. And he and I were sort of, we were going to not play together. He was heading in another direction in his life. He was married, and they were starting a family, and he needed to, and I was going in the other direction, and it just didn't feel right. And he was like, well, why don't you call our friend, one of his close friends, Lauren Stillman? And I was like, whoa. So I started kind of playing with Lauren, asking Lauren to play with me and play some of those tunes. And then our favorite person, so that was that. And then our favorite bass player, in terms of our peer group, was Ivan Opsvik, who I've been listening to since the 90s. Were you in New York in the 90s, Samo?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Internet Cafe?
Sure. Yeah, I was there like 97, I think, the first time, or 96 even, 97. Shit. But yeah, I know the place. Yeah. I know the place. Yeah.
So there was this band called Spirals. With Sam Zadegursky, Ivan Opsvik, Don Peretz, and Jacob Sachs. We were in college, and that was a band that they didn't play that much. But whenever they played, I was in the front row. Sam and I were in college together. We're still great friends. And Ivan was the bass player, and we were like, oh, Ivan writes all our favorite songs by Ivan. So that was why I wanted to play with Ivan. And then Brandon Seabrook I met through Jeremy Udine, wonderful saxophonist. Yeah, beautiful. And we had our first discussion about Keith Moon. That was who we talked about. We were both, we have a similar background, and we grew up in the same classic rock, and then it was, at the time, it was called alternative or grunge. That was the music that we loved, and then this jazz thing was aspirational and was adult and was something we wanted to be a part of. But the low-hanging fruit that we loved was rock music, and we still have, and we have that just similar background. You know what I mean? Just. So we just connected on that. And there was other little gigs and bands and long stories so I got us together, and it was really just sort of an update of this music I had been doing with Matt Blaustein, which wasn't widely heard and was very developmental, but was great musicians and a great experience. I really am thankful for all that. I just kind of wish I was a better player. I wish I'd played better. Wish my head had been on a little tighter, head screwed on a little tighter, and all that. But that's life. So that's how I got us together, and they're so supportive, man. Those guys were so supportive of what I was doing. I remember one time we played at Greenwich House, and I had this new tune, and I had written all the chord symbols totally wrong. And it was just a mistake. It was just a mistake, and those guys were out to dry, and the tune just died, and I was so embarrassed. Those guys were totally cool. They were like, don't worry about it, man. Just get another gig. Guys, I'm so sorry. I was mortified when I realized what had happened. When I realized what Brandon was looking at versus what it was, I was like, no wonder. Oh my God! Oh, it was. It's Lawrence Stillman. You know what I mean? He's playing on these changes, and they just.
Shit.
That's just not what's happening, and that was just my mistake. That was just a mistake I made.
Yeah.
Just a mistake I made. There it is.
But that's how we learn as band leaders.
So then that's how we learn.
Yeah.
That's how we learn. Yeah.
But yeah, beautiful band, this group. I mean, I'm such a fan of all of you guys. It's such a nice group, really, and beautiful.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah, but I mentioned Pekin before, and how did that one happen? Yeah. And your connection with Jordy, what's the story behind that?
Sure. Well, that was the story there was Jacob Sachs. Jacob's an instigator, so he was like, "Well, hey guys, why don't?" He was like, "We should be recording. We should all be recording more." This is Jacob. This is like, he's priming the pump. We should all be recording. We should. Okay. He's like, let's just go in the studio, and let's just play in the studio like we just do these sessions. So it was Dave Ambrosio, wonderful bassist.
Yeah.
And I got the studio. We got some money together, and we just went for it. We just played free, and I tuned the drums all fucked up, and I put weird cymbals on it. It was very 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 modern, very modern music, and and we just totally went for it. And we played for an hour free, and we played an hour of tunes. And I listened back, and I initially was like, oh, there's 2 records here. And then I was like, I think there's 1 record here. I think there's I think it should be a mix of these improvisations and these tunes. And then it was a thing of like, just send Jordy a master, and he'll listen to it, and if he wants to put it out, he will. So I sent it to him, and then I had a chance to meet him. The first time I was ever in Europe, I had a chance to meet him through Masa Kamaguchi. And he said, well, Vinny, I do like the record, but I can't put it out because people don't listen to free improvisations. Now, if you guys re-recorded it and put some more standards on it, then I could release it. And I said, Jordy, that makes a lot of sense. I think you're probably right, but we feel really strongly about this record as it is. So if you don't want to do it, I think I'll try to find, somebody else that wants to do it, or I'll put it out myself. And then he got all smiley, and he was like, okay, let's do something. And I was like, oh, okay, man. What a weirdo, And then I realized, well, I didn't realize anything, but I couldn't believe that response. I still tease him about it when I talk to him. And he doesn't even remember. He doesn't remember the dinner. He doesn't remember even meeting me like that. He just knows that we're friends. The last time I saw him, I was like, Jordy, man, I really appreciate that time that Jacob and I stayed with you for a couple nights. Because we were playing, and then we had nights off, and then Jacob was going there and I was going there. So Jordy just put us up, man.
Oh, that's nice of him.
We were at his house, stayed up late listening to records. He didn't even remember. He was like, when did we do that? And I'm like, 2017, man, like for 3 nights. He was like, oh, I was like, Jordy, you gave me a ride to the Barcelona airport. He's like, yeah. Anyway,
what wine did you drink, right?
Relationship is strong, is ongoing. We I don't know. He always orders the wine. He has the wine, and he does the glass. He's in the who's who in Barcelona. I mean, he's I don't know the whole story, but he's you know, he's a very special guy
Yeah,
to
yeah,
me.
he is.
That's
He is. No,
the amount of music that he's heard.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to hear about Rene? I don't even know that dude's name. That piano player, Rene Untergerger or something.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You know, who
Yeah.
played on like Miles
Yeah.
I mean, he knows everything about that guy.
Wow.
I mean, I'm blown away by that. I'm like, wow, you know. So he loves Jacob and I because that's how Jacob is, and that's how I am. That's how Ethan Iverson is. That's how you know, a lot of people they're really just they love to know every record, every player. They just that's our thing. That's my thing. It's beautiful, man. It's a beautiful thing. And yeah, I keep ending up in the same spot, Samo. Just man, I'm not saying it's easy. Music business is easy, or that everybody's life is great, or that everyone's a wonderful person. I don't mean that. It's just there's so much beauty in just being a musician and playing music and sharing it with an audience. It's a really beautiful thing, and every time I think about it, I'm just like, wow, this is weird. This is nice. Yeah. I don't know how interesting it's going to be listened to, but that's how I feel, you know.
No, but I agree. I mean, we all do this because the only way to do this is that you love it. I mean, that's why I do these talks, you know, these interviews, just because I love listening to you guys, you know, because I'm a musician myself and I love listening to you playing with Mike or with whoever.
Yeah, man.
And that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
So,
I'm right with you, man. I listen to your shows, you know.
Yeah, I love
I'm a fan, you know. It's fun, you know.
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun.
It's just better than anything else I don't want to put down stuff. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm just saying, like, it's not just this isn't the Marvel universe. You know what I mean? I don't want to put that down. That's your thing.
No, but I know
what
what you mean.
It's fine. Not my thing. But that's not what we're into. We're into these are real people who live their lives in this beautiful way, and their music is encoded with their history and the best parts of themselves, and all their hopes and dreams come out when they play. And if you listen, well, you can't get it. You get this thing happens when they play and you listen. This thing happens, and it's no one really understands it. If we did, we wouldn't do it. And of course, you know this. Everyone knows this. I'm just saying something we already know. And that's why what I'm saying is this is why we're into it. It's not just fun trivia. There's humanity here. It's humans we're into. We're interested in humans. And I learned that from Michael Formanek and James Williams and Steve Wilson and Richard Davis and Bill Goodwin and Horace Arnold and Billy Hart, and everybody, John Riley, everybody, Rick Montalbano.
Yeah.
You know that? Do you know that name?
Yeah, sure. I know all these people that you mentioned. I mean, Horace Arnold.
You know Rick?
Yeah. I mean, and Horace Arnold, for instance, like he's one of the most underrated guys out there for me. You know, it's like incredible.
Oh yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean, very,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Horace, you know, he at a certain point he became he stepped away from a certain kind of schedule, you know, of playing all the time, and everyone that heard him play, you know, sort of wishes he hadn't done that, you know, that he'd stayed active and because he's
super player.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Vinny, I wanted to ask you about connect. You mentioned Blood Count before with Formanek, and it popped to my mind. You played also with Hank Roberts, recently, and he's one of Burns' generation. Kind of, how did you hook up with Hank and his bands? And
Brian Dry, the trombonist.
Oh,
He
okay.
Hank Hank goes through cycles, and he was in a cycle of wanting to come to New York, and
Okay.
somebody got word of that through Tim or somebody, and Hank was just staying at somebody's house, and he was just around, and Mike McGinnis,
Mm-hmm.
the clarinetist,
Yep.
was like, "You want to do a session?" Sure. And then the day came, and I texted him like, Are we still playing? Is it happening?" And he said, "Yeah, it's a trio, you, me, and Hank Roberts." And I
Woo.
replied like, "Cool." Kermit Driscoll. Yeah, I was like, "Cool. Kermit Driscoll's coming too, and maybe Guy Klusevis." I thought he was joking. And then I got there and I was like, "Oh, hi, Hank. Nice to meet you." And there was Hank. And we just played, and I was like, and just and the same thing, some sort of friendship came together, and I made it a point of going to everything that Hank was doing. Remember seeing him play a solo concert at some weird place that when he just improvises, it's very special. It's a very pure. And anyway, so one thing led to another, and then he got this idea to put this sextet together for the I-Beam at that time. Brian and I-Beam, they were like, "Let's give weekends to these people." And Hank was like, "Well, I have this long piece and this sextet," and he dreamt up this sextet of me, Jacob, Brian Dry, Dana Lynn, and McGinnis, and it was. So we went for it, and there's plans to keep it going. It's Hank is still writing for us. We played in Ithaca in the fall, and there's discussion of keeping it going. There's intention to keep it going. All these bands, they all will continue if you all keep talking to each other.
Sure.
When you stop talking to each other,
Yep.
then it falls into like, oh, we should do something, and that's the way it goes. That's life. But I never not want to play with Formanek, Hank, Ethan, McHenry, Sax, Orrin Evans. I mean, whoever. Like, I never want it to be zero. I never want it to go zero. So that's my MO. Is I just hey, business is what it is, but let's play. You know what I mean? Like, that's my now the world knows Vinny's secret. He wants to play with people. That was the dirty secret I learned with Ethan Iverson and Mark Morris, is that if I want to keep doing this gig, I should just keep doing it and playing as well as I can every time, and being really serious about it because I really love it. And if I really love it and I keep playing well, and I keep saying yes to the gigs, I'll probably keep doing it. That was the secret I discovered. Like, oh, so if I just keep doing this, maybe I can keep doing this. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's literally that simple. When you love it, it's that simple.
Yep.
Just tomorrow I'm playing with Anders Nilsson and Sam Kulik and Dave Ambrosio. Anders wants to start this new band, and we're playing up in Beacon, New York at Quinn's. And it's it's a first band. It's the first gig of a new band. Here we go. What's going to happen? Who knows? I don't know. But if we play great, maybe we'll keep playing. And then this weekend, I'm playing with a great band, Yoon Choi, the vocalist. She's trying to do this quartet with these long relationships with Jacob Sachs and Thomas Morgan and me. She wants to do stuff. Well, let's do stuff. Let's play. We're going to play a concert. We'll see who comes. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And then on Saturday, I'm playing with Ember, with Caleb Curtis and Noah Garabedian. let's just keep it going. That's I don't even know what I'm talking about here. Samo, I'm off on something. Just playing and connections and people. That's all this is for me. It's just get out there, play, find a way to make it work, and just keep it going.
Yeah, but usually it works. All the players you mentioned, it's like having good pasta, good tomatoes, and good Parmigiano cheese. Like nothing can go wrong. So it's
that's all it is.
Yeah,
that's all it is, man.
Yeah.
It's just
so it's
with Michael Formanek, for a drummer, you don't have to do anything. Like just be awake while he's playing, and the drums just play themselves. He's doing all the work. He's going to take care of it. Thomas Fujiwara and I have talked about it. It's just he does all the work. You don't have to do a damn thing. Just hang out. He'll take care of it. He'll deliver it. It's beautiful. Hank Roberts, the times that I've played with those guys and that it didn't fill me with the feeling I've had other times. It's because I got in the way. I listened back to the recordings and I was like, oh, I was overplaying. That's why it didn't feel good. Okay, well, I hope they'll forgive me, and of course, it isn't like that. You know what I mean? But I was like, oh, I was overplaying. I was overdoing it. I was overdoing it, which happened.
Sure, we're human. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. That can happen anytime.
Yeah.
You can just overdo it.
Yeah. Now with those guys, it's like I had like in 2022 we had like a 3-week tour with Ariel Anderson on bass and Bob Moses on drums. And
with who on bass?
Ariel Anderson, Ariel? He's like from Jan Garbarek.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, great. He's great.
Oh man.
Yeah, of course. And who's playing drums?
Bob Moses.
Yeah.
And we had a tour, man, and it was just like we were playing.
That's what I'm talking about.
I didn't even. They were playing a duo, and I was like, shit. I guess slowly I should enter. I'm kind of the band leader. I was like, shit. Those guys were playing so good. I was
right.
And I kind of entered, like, okay, I guess, but I could just listen to that for hours. Like just. So it's kind of
me too.
Yeah.
I would listen to those guys anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But
you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, sure.
You know exactly what I mean.
We're doing that. So, but you mentioned all these gigs now coming up. I wanted to ask you, like, how are you going to promote the new record?
Well, that's it's to be determined. We're going to do a Barbez gig, which I'm very excited about. And because Lauren Stillman lives in Montana, of all places.
Yeah, I know.
I talked to his wife and kids. We did a Zoom call about moving back to play with Vinnie once in a while, but they didn't go for it. I'm kidding. I didn't talk to Val and Ziggy about that. But he lives where he lives, and he's coming here. He wants to be more involved. His family wants him to be more involved. New York City and the world of jazz really misses Lawrence Stillman.
Yeah.
We really need his voice.
Yeah. We
need everyone's voice. But we miss Lauren. He was he was important.
Definitely.
We need him. So he wants to be more involved. So when he's here, I want to hatch a plan for more shows, because I really need the shows. And, I was doing shows of this music with other musicians, and it was great. It was great. Everyone was great, but it ultimately just didn't feel like the band to me. And I felt I was sad about that, because, there's no way, because it's like, it has nothing to do with the people you're playing with. It's just not the band. You know what I mean? They're great. It's not that. That's not the problem. The problem is me. The problem is these tunes only do the thing I dream of with these people. And that's a problem, but the solution is to find more things to do, the four of us, and there's willingness. So we have this Barbez gig. I'm very active on Substack with this Chronicles publication, and I'm going to be promoting it on that. There's a lot of people read those. So there'll be just some awareness through that. and I'm going to be figuring it out. I'm trying to work with some publicists and press people to bring about some awareness. But what I really want are shows, and I need to be very kind of smart about that. But it's the time of year when everybody puts their year together. We have APAP and Winter Jazz coming up this weekend. We're busy with all that stuff. So that's the idea. Watch for us though. Vinnie Sperrazza, Apocryphal Sunday, Lawrence Stillman, Brandon Seabrook, Ivan Opsvik, some soulful and earnest, some frank and earnest soulful rock jazz, you know, played with a nice vibe.
You should be a PR guy, man.
One of the interesting things about the band is that it's a certain kind of we're playing a lot of songs. You know what I mean? It's songs, and it's what am I trying to say? It's not there's a certain sort of technical, like musical technique thing that like if you're a great, I don't want to say let me just say it's songs. I think anybody could enjoy it. Let me say that, because anything else I say, it's going to seem like I'm putting down something, and that's not what I'm doing. It's just different, but it's too complicated, and let's just leave it at it's just songs.
And it's beautiful music, man. Come on. And those guys are, I mean, all of you guys are incredible.
Too many put downs. Too many. Thanks, Samo. But there's too much, not in jazz, but in the world, there's too much. We're too many hot takes. Too many attacks. Too many.
I agree.
We should go back to some politeness. Yeah. How about a little more politeness, a little bit more respect, a little bit. Maybe I won't say it. That's fine. Maybe don't say it. Yeah. Let's let it go. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Otherwise, do I have any plans of bringing the band to Europe? Or, I mean, it could be a cool group for Europe.
I mean, I need, yes, the plan is there, but I don't have the right, I haven't yet found the person that wants to bring us.
Okay.
So if you know, I'm looking around for anyone. I'm going to be inquiring. So if anyone sees this that wants to bring us, just find me.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of ways we can come. There's a lot of ways this can work.
Sure. Yeah, it's a beautiful group. Yeah. Beautiful, man.
Thank you, Samo. It means a lot, man.
Vinny, I will not bother you anymore. So, but
Samo's no bother, man. We can just hang, man. I'll do this all day.
Thanks for
talk
sharing.
Jazz. We'll get into blood count. Then we get into JMT, and then we'll get into ECM in the 70s. Arnold Anderson. We just
this can go on.
I can do this all day. Yep.
This is a nice like talk with a glass of wine, you know, or no, sorry, a bottle of wine.
That's what I'm saying, man. We just get the records out, and we get into the early Paul trio. Oh yeah.
Now we're talking. But now
we're talking.
Appreciate sharing some of these thoughts, man. You know, and hopefully the record will get at least some exposure through that as well. And that's important.
Thank you so much for hosting me, Samo. It's really an honor and a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vinny.